What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here, of course, to give our top 5 female UFC fighters of 2022. Now, this year, of course, saw two former champions become champion once again, with Weili Zhang and Amanda Nunes regaining their titles in an emphatic fashion. Of course, Nunes defeating Julia Pena and avenging that loss that she suffered in 2021. And, of course, Zhang Weili defeating Carla Esparza, who had regained the title against Rose Namajunas. Of course, in the flyweight division, Valentina Shevchenko remained the champion in 2022, but came to her closest performance yet and her closest challenge yet in Tyler Santos. But these are our top 5. Now, in my opinion, it was very much the year of the flyweights this year. I think the flyweights certainly picked up and grew and developed this year somewhat, besides the featherweight division, which is pretty much non-existent. It is the weaker of the women's divisions, but I think it's slowly catching up to the champion and developing a rate of knots to become one of the more exciting divisions to watch. So, at 5th place, of course, Alexa Grasso, the former strawweight, of course, made a move up, I believe, in 2021, of course, last year, but she continued that upward trajectory with a fantastic 2-0 record in 2022, starting off against Joanne Wood. Of course, she submitted Joanne Wood in London in March in a fantastic fashion in the first round. Of course, walking into maybe not the back garden of Joanne Woods, but of course, if you remember UFC London at the O2, that electrical sort of energy that was there, the presence, the vibe was there. Paul Craig getting a win against Nikita Krylov, Mohamed Mokaev kicking the show off. It was a fantastic night for British MMA. And Alexa Grasso walked into the Lions Den in the O2 and absolutely, I think she was the first upset on the card potentially. And Alexa Grasso, showed that she's now top 15 in this division, maybe even top 10 at the time. And she had a fantastic performance, fantastic win. And she battled up against Vivian Araujo, of course, back in October. She headlined, and this is where it's a bit unfair this year, because obviously we had some events in the Apex with no crowd and a more lackluster, more flat atmosphere. So when you're going back through this year, the more pinpoint moments and those more memorable moments happen in arenas with crowds. So you're almost flicking through this year going, oh, who performed down where? Who had this performance? And of course, those performances with crowds almost attract your attention a little bit more. But she did have a fantastic performance against Araujo and, cemented herself in the top 7 of this division. And she's probably a win or two away from the title. It is a division that Valentina has defeated a lot of the challengers and those in the top 10 already. Grasso is a fresh opponent for Shevchenko, and potentially next in line with Thoreau and, of course, Tyler Santos going at it early in the new year. But kicking it off was Alexa Grasso. Now, going to the 4th, maybe a bit of a controversial one. Personally, not for me, it's Meatball Molly McCann. Now, Molly McCann didn't end the year the way she started the year. Of course, that lost to Erin Blanchfield at UFC 281. But she certainly did have a spectacular year, did the Meatball. Of course, kicking it off in London. The spin in the elbow, of course. A knockout of the year contender. Many thought at the time they would be knockout of the year. A fantastic performance. One of those that really got the crowd bubbling away. Of course, again, as I said, with Alexa Grasso. In London, in the O2, one of the first fights back with crowds. The buzz was just there. The energy was just there. And Molly McCann stoked that energy up and really performed. Now, she did have a period in her career where maybe she was one of those that fell flat because of the Apex performances. She needs that crowd behind her. She needs that roar of her people behind her. The Liverpudlians, the Scousers, the Toffees, if you want to really pinpoint it. But she needs her people behind her. And she had it in the palm of her hands going into that fight. And, of course, it wasn't the best performance against Luana Carolina, but she pulled it out of the fire in the 3rd round with that spinning elbow. And, her sort of stock rose and shot up, really. And of course, she does have a good friendship with Paddy the Baddy, but she's certainly become her own entity in this year and really felt like for the first time this year, she felt at home at the UFC. She felt like she was a UFC fighter, not a Cage Warriors champion developing in the UFC. She feels at home now. And of course, the Barstool sponsorship probably does help with that, with her being able to just concentrate on the sport and getting her craft to where it needs to be. But of course, she repeated the magic of UFC London in March, again in London in July, with that, again, spinning back elbow against Hannah Goldie, this time not, knocking out Hannah Goldie, but certainly dropping her and getting the finish via ground and pound. And again, similar to the one in March, of course, the card in July didn't quite match what March brought to us. Of course, March was a sort of newfound territory for us with the amount of UK talent we had on that card. And obviously July fell a bit flat. That obviously Tom Aspinall's injury didn't help with that. It just felt a bit flatter than the one in March. Maybe, to use the phrase, you wait all day for a bus in London and then two come at once. Maybe we had those events too close to one another and it was a bit exhausting for the crowd. Who knows? Of course, we had Paul Craig lost on that night as well, I believe, against Ozdemir, of course. And it was a bumper card, that middle London card. So maybe it was just a little bit too much for the fans on that particular night. But she certainly got the performance against Hannah Goldie, and that's why she's fourth in the top five female fighters in the UFC of 2022. Now, going on to third is the woman that beat Molly McCann, of course, Erin Blanchfield. Now, of course, Erin Blanchfield is 23 years of age, a fantastic prospect for the age that she is. Coming away, beating Molly McCann. She was 2-0 as herself as well in the UFC. Starting the year off with a win against JJ Aldrich, a submission win, standing guillotine choke win, even back in June. And then obviously she had that fantastic win, the Kimura win against Molly McCann, where she was absolutely dominant against Molly McCann, showing that there's levels to this sport. Of course, Molly McCann is a boxer. Erin Blanchfield's a more wrestling-based, more well-rounded fighter than maybe where Molly McCann is right now. And for 23 years of age, it's scary to see where she could be within a year or two, maybe 3 years of this division. Of course, she's fighting Tyler Santos in February, and many thought Tyler Santos would get the rematch against Shevchenko, myself included. I think she deserved the rematch based on her performance. But the UFC haven't gone that way. But they're giving her to Erin Blanchfield, and that's a fantastic fight for Blanchfield. And if she wins, she'll certainly be next in line. And she's someone who could be, pushing the champion going into 2024, maybe 2025. We'll see how this division plays out. But she's certainly someone to keep an eye out this year to see how her development goes. My only sort of question mark is, again, this is a reflection of the flyweight division. I don't like how quickly the jump is. She just defeated what was 15th ranked. Now, of course, she did make it look easy with all due respect to Molly McCann, but jumping straight up to Tyler Santos is a bit of a jump. You'd expect her maybe to fight an Alexa Grasso, maybe to fight maybe a Casey O'Neill when Casey O'Neill returns. Someone of that ballpark. Let's have 4 or 5 fight win streaks going and letting fighters have a year or two to really develop their craft, not just throw them in and go, actually, we need someone for Valentina to fight, but because you put them in there half-baked, they get destroyed by Valentina. So let someone develop their game. Now, of course, Erin Blanchfield does certainly have age on her side to be someone who's highly touted to take over the mantle from Valentina Shevchenko, but she had a fantastic 2022, but let's not throw him in the deep end too quickly. But then again, that is the sport that we signed up to watch, isn't it? And if you're good enough, you're certainly well enough to be given title shots and test yourself against the very best. And again, with Erin Blanchfield only being 23, should a loss to Valentina Shevchenko be on the horizon this year, it won't be too damaging for her career, hopefully. And of course, number 2 is, again, sticking in the flyweight division. Again, as I said, is a very good year for flyweights this year. It's Manon Fiorot. Now, Manon Fiorot, similar to the previous previous 3, also went 2-0 this year, but she defeated 2 title challengers this year. Of course, the first being Jennifer Maia back in March. Of course, also on that London card. I believe that was on the prelims of that London card, wasn't it? If I remember rightly. And she came out and had a fantastic performance against Maia. And then she put it and doubled down against Katlyn Chookagian. Now, Katlyn Chookagian, has been the number 1 contender for a long time, and many thought maybe she'd get the rematch against Valentina maybe this year. But Manon Fiorot put a stop to those thoughts, because obviously she beat her at UFC 280 in Fight Island and put on a fantastic performance. And to defeat 2 challengers, again, she's coming to the prime of her career, and it was a fantastic year for her. Again, with now Blanchfield and Tyler Santos facing off, so you got to think that Manon Fiorot is next in line for the title. and having beaten two previous challengers, it'd be a hard argument to say no to that, wouldn't it? Again, her sort of question marks is she's not been 5 rounds yet. Again, not her fault. She's not been booked in a 5-round fight. So to throw her in there with the champion for her first 5-round fight would be a bit rough. Again, I'd like to see her against maybe a Grasso, maybe a not Chikaigan, but maybe a Jessica Andrade, maybe, in the 5-round main event, perhaps. But again, as you said, for Blanchfield, if you're good enough, you should be tested against the very best. But I agree with her sentiment that she wants a 5-round fight prior to fighting the champion. Can she withstand 25 minutes? I think she could. I think she has the skills to, but also, there's a little bit of a different mentality going into a championship fight, and maybe just having those main events where the spotlight's a little bit more on you would help her. Maybe a UFC Paris. Maybe if they want to go back to Paris, put Manon Fiorot on there against a Grasso or someone of that nature. But again, with London coming up in March, they're going to want title fights on that. I know Dana wants to stack that, so maybe the thought plan is Valentina versus Manon Fiorot in London, perhaps. Maybe that would be something we could get behind. We don't know. Maybe get French fans over. Also, although with it being in the O2, again, it's disappointing it's not in Cardiff, because with 60,000 you can book a more stacked card with a lot more fan bases involved. Like for example, Morgan Sherrier, as former Cage Warriors featherweight champion, has a huge fan base that travels with him. But obviously, with the more reserved O2 arena, which only has a third, if not a quarter, of the capacity of the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, then it makes it difficult to really book and pad those fights out with fans getting their wishes to be able to be there as well. But let's move on to Fighter of the Year. And I think this is a pretty unanimous one. It's Zhang Weili, of course. Now, of course, Zhang Weili came into the year looking for her belt back. She had lost to Rose Namajunas in 2021, and she was determined to get that back in 2022, as she did against, of course, Carla Esparza. But let's go back to her first fight. Now, I forgot this actually happened this year, and probably shows you the how many fights we've had this year, how many good fights we've had this year. But of course, the rematch against Yoni and Jacek took place in June, and of course, that spinning back this knockout. In my mind, I thought it was 2021 perhaps, but no, it happened only 6 months ago, and it was a stellar performance. Of course, their first match in 2020, right before the pandemic, was a fight of the year, and you saw the leaps and bounds that Zhang Weili has taken in the rematch, and of course, maybe Yoni and Jacek feeling the time, time on her side, etc., catching up to her. She retired on that interview post the fight with Zhang Weili, of course, in June, in Singapore. Now maybe she's getting itchy feet to get back in there and give the fans a fight they deserve, maybe a final goodbye. If that does happen, please put it in Poland. Let's have, it's a shame Jan Blachowicz didn't beat Magomed Ankalaev, because you could have done Jan Blachowicz versus Yuri in Poland, in Warsaw, and sell out a stadium there with Yoni and Jacek on there and with Chus Gamrot on there as well. Maybe Petian's Russian, of course, but it'd have that travelling fan base, let's not forget. But if she does get there, I'd like to see her do one more, but please put it in Poland or one of those nations there where she can have a big fan base and a proper send-off, because she does deserve it. But back to Zhang Weili, fantastic performance against her, and of course she then backed it up with the win against Carla Esparza at UFC 281 with a fantastic submission in round 2, but she dominated the first round herself and really showed why she's the number one strawweight on the planet right now. Now, of course, she does need to beat Rose Namajunas to complete a set of beating every strawweight champion. Of course, Rose Namajunas is the only champion to have beaten every holder of the strawweight champion at the moment. Pardon me, she's not, because she's lost to Carla Esparza twice. So yeah, should Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili compete, and Zhang Weili gets the win, she would have defeated every champion that the strawweight division has possessed, which is a good, which would be a good accolade to really have on the resume. But again, she's going to be itching to get those two back against that one back against Rose Namajunas after those two losses, the first the knockout and of course the split decision loss. But yeah, fantastic 2022 for her. Now, what did 2023 possess and hold? Maybe a Valentina fight, maybe a flyweight championship fight. Maybe she goes up for the two belts. It would be interesting to see if she does that. So there was some talk about her on the MMA Hour, I believe. Maybe with Valentina, but who knows? Of course, Amanda Lemos is probably the number one contender right now. You have got Rose Namajunas, but we don't know where she is right now mentally. Of course, she's competing recently on Cage Theory, grappling Gillian Robertson. So it would be interesting to see where she is. You got Jessica Andrade again, somewhere there, but she's floating between weights. So it's difficult to pinpoint who is next for Zhang Weili. Again, could be Marina Rodriguez also. But yes, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree with my top 5 female UFC fighters of 2022? Make sure to drop this video a like. Make sure to subscribe also. And make sure to follow us on social at CageChat MMA across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on everything these days. But yes, I'm going to leave it there. And I'll see you guys on the next video.